beginning of Module 4, Dr. Weil goes through a lot of terms to explain to you all the different parts of a fungus. And I gave you a couple of diagrams in your notes that hopefully will be self-explanatory, but in case they're not, I'm going to walk you through them. The main body of the fungus is called the mycelium, and the mycelium is made up of a number of different things called hyphae. And there are two main kinds of hyphae. They're either septate or non-septate. Now, septate hyphae have their cells divided by cell walls, and the way that I remember that is that septate almost looks like the word separate, and so the cell walls separate the cells and the nuclei from each other. Now, in a fungus, it's a little bit different than it is in almost every other organism, because in fungus, there are actually little bitty divisions or little bitty openings between the different cell walls so that the cytoplasm in one cell can flow into the cytoplasm in another cell and vice versa. So although the cells have cell walls separating them, they're not completely separate because the cytoplasm can still move back and forth. That is only true in Kingdom Fungi. It's not true in any of the other kingdoms at all. So these guys have cell walls. Non-septate hyphae do not have cell walls. So those are the two kinds of hyphae as far as cell walls are concerned. Now, there are also other kinds of hyphae. They can be divided in a different way. One is called rhizoid hyphae. And the rhizoid hyphae are the ones that are the hyphae that are specifically on the material that the fungi is living on, or fungus is living on. If you're thinking of a mushroom specifically, the hyphae are going to be underneath the ground. The rhizoids will be underneath the ground. Rhizoid hyphae has two specific kinds of functions. Specifically, it's going to support the fungus, and it's going to engage in extracellular digestion. You can think of extracellular digestion as almost as if you were thinking of yourself, if you took your stomach acid, which helps you digest your food, if you took your stomach acid and kind of barfed it up all over your plate, and then let it kind of sit there and digest your food, and then you drink your plate full of the digestive juice plus the food, that's almost what a fungus is going to do. It puts out all this fluid, all this chemical onto the food source itself and digests it, and then takes the food into itself after it's already digested. So that's very different from what most other organisms are going to do. And as your book mentions, if a fungus is going to make you sick, it's normally because of this chemical that it excretes in order to do the digestion. A lot of times that's toxic, and so that tends to be what makes people sick. There is one particular specific kind of rhizoid hyphae that not every single kind of fungus has. This is not specialized, so this is very general. Every fungus is going to have rhizoid hyphae. A haustorium is a very specialized type of hyphae, though, because the haustorium is one that is only going to be present in a parasitic fungus. So I look at this first part of this word, and haustorium, H-A-U-S, is actually the German word for house. So if you said it like you were German, you'd say that would be haustorium. And the way I think of this is that a robber will come into your house and take your stuff. Well, a haustorium is a hyphae that will come off of the fungus, and whatever cells it is living on, if this is the cell of its host organism, this hyphae will actually invade this other cell and start taking in the cytoplasm, taking in the nutrients that this cell is living off of. It's a parasite, so it lives off of something else. And so it has invaded this house, it's invaded this cell to take in the nutrients from this other cell. Again, all funguses are going to have rhizoid hyphae. The haustorium is going to be specialized. It's only going to be if they're parasitic. Okay. The other type of hyphae are called aerial hyphae. And I'm going to bring this over a little further so I have enough space to get it up here. Aerial sounds like just The aerial sounds like what it really is. The hyphae are going to stick up in the air, and you'll see that on your coloring sheet especially. And aerial hyphae, again, are specialized. Not all fungi have them, only specialized ones do. And the aerial hyphae are further separated into 3 different kinds. So one of the aerial hyphae is going to specifically absorb oxygen from the air. Just like you and I, just like almost all other living organisms, fungi need oxygen to survive. So some of your aerial hyphae are going to supply the oxygen, they're going to absorb the oxygen from the air. A second kind of aerial hyphae is a stolon, and those stolons specifically reproduce asexually. You'll have a picture of this on your coloring sheet, but the way it looks above the ground really reminds me a lot of how strawberries reproduce, if you're familiar with those. With a strawberry, you've got your strawberry plant that's out here, and then it sends out what are called runners, and then those runners will make new roots, and they'll make a new strawberry plant. Now, with fungi, they don't have roots, they don't have leaves, they don't have stems, but it sort of looks the same way in that they will send out something that looks almost like a runner, and then they will reproduce asexually to make another fungus. So both of both of the funguses that are produced from a stolon are going to be identical to each other, just as those strawberry plants that are produced from a runner are identical to each other as well. It's asexual reproduction, so there hasn't been a mixing of DNA at all. So your stolons are going to reproduce asexually, and then the third type is called a sporophore. One thing that's true about all funguses or all fungi is that they reproduce by spores, and so the sporophore is going to produce the spores so that they can make new fungi out of them. Sporophores will come in 2 specific kinds depending on whether those spores are in an enclosure or whether they're not in an enclosure. If you have an enclosure where they're either they're in some sort of a container that has a lid that's going to pop open, or whether maybe the whole thing is going to burst and the spores will kind of just pop all over the place. If the spores are covered, then the specific type of sporophore is called a sporangiophore. If they are not covered, and you'll see pictures of both of these on your coloring sheet and in the figure that is in the book, and I'll point this out in your notes too as to which ones are which. If the spores are not in a covered receptacle, then it's called a conidiaphore. So these are in an uncovered receptacle. So hopefully that will explain to you how we can take all of these words that he's given you and kind of relate them to each other. Again, the rhizoid hyphae are the ones that are not specialized. All fungi have them. The aerial hyphae, the haustorium, and the aerial hyphae, all 3 of these are all specialized hyphae that only a few fungi have.